Hey folks, Steve here. All right, that was Bad Horsey. And, welcome to Alien Guitar Secrets Live. Give me 1 minute to get set up here. I don't have my fan, so you know how it goes. How we doing, Steven? We happening?
All good.
All right. Thanks for joining today. Today is Tuesday. What is it? It's May 5th, and this is Alien Guitar Secrets episode 7, and that was Bad Horsey. Some of you have seen that performed multiple times, and I thought, well, what can I do for a performance in lockdown? And I thought, well, I didn't really want to play to a backing track because, I don't know, but then I thought, yeah, why not? And I always want to bring something new to it, but didn't really have a lot of time to prepare. And I knew Bad Horsey. It's about time. And at the last minute, I decided to play it. I hope you enjoyed it. I figured in this setting, it might be interesting for some of you. All right. So let me get my notes. All right. Today, I'm very excited to be doing this Alien Guitar Secrets Masterclass. I have some great questions. And what I'd like to do today is perhaps the second half of today's episode, I'm going to talk about the PIA. That's right, that beautiful guitar you just saw me playing. And I'm going to go through the whole evolution of the JEM into the PIA, and even perhaps potentially future thoughts and ideas on the PIA. But first, I wanted to answer a few questions here because I keep seeing similar questions coming up. And hi, Steve. Okay, so here's the question I want to kind of talk about. It goes, hi, Steve, how do you achieve free flow? Just being able to hear what's in your mind and instantly translate on the guitar. Well, I will do my best. It's a very elusive frame of mind that's hard to describe. But in order to achieve the feeling of playing and being at one with the instrument, so to speak, being one with the note, I can kind of tell you about my evolution as a guitar player and how I've gotten to at least where I am today, because I continue to want to improve and go deeper and deeper into that free flow, because that's really where the good stuff lives. And okay, so in the process of doing this, as I always mention, there's sort of like two levels of performing, or at least getting ready to perform. And one of them is you just have to carve your teeth. You got to put the time in to develop your technique. You have to be able to achieve unconscious competence. Now, I'm going to explain what that is. It's not an uncommon concept. Unconscious competence. Okay, what does that mean? Well, there's 4 phases, and it starts out in this terminology, and it starts out with unconscious incompetence. So what does that mean, unconscious incompetence? What that means is you're not aware, you're unconscious of things that you don't even know that you can do. So for instance, let's say you were a guitar player and you wanted to learn, or you didn't want to learn, you didn't really know anything about proper vibrato, right? Let's say you didn't know anything about it. So you'd be unconsciously incompetent at doing vibrato, right? So then, and this is sort of like another analogy would be if you were learning how to drive a car. Before you get into a car, you don't know anything about, let's just say hypothetically, that you don't know anything about how a car works, the steering wheel, the gas, the clutch, all of these things. You are unconsciously incompetent at driving a car. So then you enter the second phase, which is conscious incompetence. And that's the stage where somebody says, oh, by the way, this is how you drive a car, and then they're showing you and they're teaching you. Oh, by the way, this is how you do, this is vibrato, and this is how it works, and this is what it does. So in that stage, you're consciously incompetent because you become aware of what you don't know. So somebody's saying this is the steering wheel, this is the gas. So you're watching, and you're learning that there's things that you don't know. So then you can go on to the third phase, which is called conscious competence. Now, what does that mean? That is the phase where you're honing your skill. You're consciously aware of becoming competent at something. So you're struggling, you get your vibrato, you're like, what? How did it go? Was it like this? And maybe it's scales, and in the analogy of the car, you're sitting behind the wheel and you're like, okay, this is the steering wheel. How does, okay, oh, that's what the brake does, and oh, that's what the clutch does, So you're consciously becoming competent. You're learning. You're applying your attention to something to make it come to a point where it feels natural to you. So obviously, if it's something like driving a car, you got to practice quite a bit, or vibrato, or anything. If you're learning golf or any sport, it's the same kind of thing. There's I remember before I played golf, before my dad showed me how to golf, I was unconsciously incompetent. I had no idea what it meant to hit a ball. And then he came along, and I became consciously incompetent because he started then showing me, you put your hand like this, and you hold the club like this, and when you go back, you got to keep your eye on the ball. All these hundreds of little things that you have to remember, and that's the craft of learning how to golf. You have to practice and practice and practice and practice and practice and practice and practice until something amazing happens. You become unconsciously competent. And what that means is you don't have to think how to drive a car anymore. It's automatic. When you're driving, you're not necessarily thinking of everything. And when you finally are Tiger Woods, when you watch him golf, it's obvious he's not necessarily thinking, but they're all natural. So you need to reach that stage where things become natural to you. And then you become unconsciously competent, meaning you are not even aware how competent you are. You don't have to think about being competent. It just flows. So that's kind of the state you want to get your performance chops in, because then when you are performing, you don't have to think, oh, how do I do vibrato again? Oh, how do I stretch notes? Oh, that's the sound of a major scale, or that's that chord. What is that? And how do I, because it's all done. It's instant, seamless, transparent, and at your disposal, at your beck and call. And that's when it gets really good. And you can do that. And it just takes focus. But the ride that you get to flow into when that unconscious competence has completely been absorbed by you, that's like that's that free flow. So I have this. Last week I did a little video on the Moon and I did the acoustic version, and I sang. And this was pretty rare for me. As a matter of fact, that was the first time I had ever published anything of me singing and playing acoustic guitar solo. In 40 years. It took me 40 years. And I don't know why that was. I love doing it, but I think it's because I don't really look forward to singing live. And it's not because I don't enjoy it. It's just that it's another thing, and it just requires a lot from me. First of all, singers have it really difficult. I mean, the voice is their instrument, and it's so delicate. Any kind of a cold or sniffles, or even somebody leaves the air conditioning too high on the bus, your show can be compromised, and especially if you have to tour and you're sick, you still got to perform. And I've been involved in many situations where, not many, but several, where gigs had to be canceled because the vocalist just couldn't sing. It just wasn't there. So I never wanted to tempt that. But I wanted to point something out because the responses that I got from posting that video were kind of a surprise and very touching for the most part, and very encouraging. So what I wanted to do to illustrate this unconscious competence, I'll review those one more time. You have unconscious incompetence. You don't know what you don't know. You have conscious incompetence, meaning now somebody is showing you and teaching you something that you didn't know. So you're consciously incompetent. You're aware of it, but you still can't do it. And then you enter the third phase of conscious competence, where you're actually working on it and honing your skill. This is the important step for you. And you get it to the point where it becomes so transparent in your playing that it turns into unconscious competence. You don't even have to think about it, and you're competent. So that's a great phrase. Now, I have here the video from The Moon and I, and what I wanted to do, because a lot of people were asking, what are you thinking when you play, and what is going through your mind, and how are you getting into the flow? So I wanted to bring up this video. Let's see if I could do this. I got the mouse, Stephen. Okay, is it up? Give me 1 second, guys. Okay, so here's The Moon and I. Now, what I was doing here, obviously, I'm home alone. Can I have this mouse, Stephen? Do you need it?
I haven't grabbed it.
Oh, okay. Okay, so what I was doing, obviously, I was home, so by myself. Well, Greg came in and helped set up all the microphones and everything for it. But here I'm just kind of tweaking the mics and getting them set up. And now I'm playing an acoustic guitar, and I don't play acoustic guitar very often. I love it. And I love strumming. Was a period of my life where I really focused on strumming. I went through the unconscious incompetence, all the way through those various stages until I was able to freely kind of strum in the manner that I'm strumming in this video. And so I don't have to think about what I'm going to do. I just kind of command it. I'm saying, okay, go here, go there, yeah. And so what I'm doing first and foremost, I've reached that stage where the playing. And by the way, to perform this, I took about maybe a half an hour, or an hour, and I just was playing acoustic before I worked out a couple of parts. When I actually shot it, I didn't. When I performed it, I didn't know what I was really going to play entirely. I just let it kind of come out, but the tools were there. So the things that I usually talk about are bringing your attention into your inner body and relaxing it. This is so important. So when I'm performing in a situation like this, a part of my attention is constantly, or at least this is what I work on. It's in my inner body. It's just the feeling of relaxing yourself. Just relaxing yourself. Because remember the 90% Uncle Hugo story? You have more control when you are in a state of relaxing a little bit. The more you relax, the more things flow. The more you relax, the more things flow. So this is you may not have known that, you may not know that. Some of you do, but for those who don't, that's you're at the stage of unconscious incompetence. Maybe you didn't realize that so much of the way that you perform with your fingers and your hands and with your body can be enhanced if you just take part of your attention and you relax your body. This is so valuable. So now I'm explaining it to you. So now you're entering the realm of conscious incompetence. So maybe you're understanding what I'm saying and you can't wait for this video to be over so you can go run to your guitar and try it. I highly recommend that because it gives you a whole different lease on playing when that attention is just in relaxing, you know, because that's where the flow comes from, and that's where the control of the fingers come. If you're always like this, you just, you know, but you will notice if you choose to practice this relaxation technique, you will be in the conscious competence stage. And you'll notice, you'll go to do it and you go, what is he talking about? How can I think about relaxing and know what to play? Well, that's part of the study, part of the practice, is to do that. You every now and then you check back in with your body and you relax it and you relax it. And if you can hold your attention in relaxing, things start happening. Okay, I can only tell you to experiment with it. It's fantastic. Okay. So in this video, as far as the relaxing goes, I am in a state of unconscious competence because in the background, as I'm performing, a part of my attention is in relaxing. Now, the main focus is it's so hard to explain. I know what to play. I don't have to think, okay, now I'm going to go to a C chord or something like this. All of that is sort of in the background too, and I'm flowing with it. That's where the flow is, you know. So here, let me show you. So you can see in this video, there's a point where I'm with you, and I'm here. It's like setting up the mics. Okay, I say hi, right? That's Steve, and then Steve goes away. Right here, he says goodbye. See those eyes? That's goodbye. Okay, now I'm gone. And where I am is in relaxing my body and in just enjoying. I don't have to think about what to really play. It's just gonna, the thinking comes very quickly. It's not even thinking, it just kind of happens. And I wanted to start the video off kind of simple and then slowly bring it up. And notice the face, very important. So like a simple riff like that, I don't have to really think about it. It flows when I'm relaxed. So now if I feel myself getting tense at all, I know because I lose focus. I lose my focus. And like I noticed when I watched this, there was 1 or 2 times where I lost focus. It only lasted a moment, but it was there. Okay, and then when it comes into the vocal part, I have to go into uber deep relaxation. And when that happens, when the uber deep relaxation comes in, for me at least, that's when my voice can actually hit notes. If I don't relax, those notes aren't going to come out. So the relaxing, again, is in the background. But what I'm focusing on when I'm singing a song like this, and this is something that can be used by you in every performance situation, because it goes right to the gist of the intention of the song. So when I'm performing a song, I think of what the song is saying. You know, what is the intention of the song, right? So in this particular song, The Moon and I, this is my intention is being expressed through the lyrics, through the vocals. And as I had mentioned before, The Moon and I, this song, Geez, I wrote this song at a sound check on the Ultrazone tour in 1999, and we recorded it then. And I think it sat on the shelf until I think 2009, where I released, or 10, when I released it as a single, because it was just sitting there and I wanted it out. But then I put it on the Story of Light record. So when when I wrote the lyrics to this song, I let the music kind of guide me. And as I had mentioned before, the lyrics are based on an experience I had when I was younger, several experiences. They're dream states, and they were very vivid, and it just seemed so real, this flying through the universe with these giant heavenly bodies, and the moon being one of them. So every word that I sing here, my attention is actually in the intention of the lyric. So if you listen to this, and I thought it was really nice to start it out, there is a love affair, because it's a kind of a romantic statement, but there's many love songs, and many of them are written about other people, but I wanted to do something different. So you hear there is a love affair, and then between the moon and I, which is kind of interesting because it's not another person, it's the moon. And we all kind of know that feeling, that romantic feeling that the moon can bring us. And I've seen a lot of people mention that grammatically it should be the moon and me. And maybe so, but the I that I am referring to in this song is not the conventional me. It's not the me. It's the deeper I. It's the I that isn't necessarily Steve Vai and all of this stuff. You know, it's the deeper I. So that's why one of the reasons I use the terminology moon and I as opposed to moon and me. So when I sing this, there is a love affair between the moon and I. Okay, right at that moment, I am having a love affair with the moon. In my dreams, you know? So right at that moment, and the reason why I'm pointing this out is because this is how you find, first of all, when your attention is on the intention of the song, the message of the song is so much more powerful, and there's no room in your mind to be wandering anyplace else that it doesn't belong, you know? It's focused on the intention of the song. So right there, and in all of these lyrics, we skate the Milky Way and a forever sky. Okay, so while I was singing that, there was a small part of my attention's on relaxing. I have to do that, or nothing can come out. And the majority of my attention, and as far as the guitar playing, I wasn't even thinking. It would just come briefly what the next chord was. That was very unconscious competence in what I was playing. So when I sang that line right there, I was, in my mind, skating the Milky Way with the moon. And we were dancing. And all the stars crash like waves beneath our feet. Okay, so at that moment that I was singing that, my full attention basically was on the feeling, the visual of skating the Milky Way with the moon and having the stars crashing at our feet. What would that feel like? What would that look like? That's what I was trying to portray. And the reason I'm mentioning this is because when you're focused on the intention of the song, that's the most powerful message you can give. Time could never find us as we slip beneath Nova sheets. So same thing. You know, I'm with the song. Now, if you notice here, down below, you command the ocean's tides. So there's just a slight aggression in the performance there because the intention of the lyric now is down below you command the ocean's tides, but you spin alone in a prison of gravity. So that's it switches from the romantic notion to something a little more serious. I know that's subtle, but it's there. But you spin alone in a prison of gravity. This here, a magnetic soul casts a spell so enchanting. Many of you know that feeling when you look up at the moon and you feel that magnetic soul, so to speak, and it is enchanting. So when I sang that lyric, that's where I was. Virtually 90% I was there. Magnetic soul, cast a spell so enchanting behind my eyes. I search in my galaxy. Okay, so there. Now this is where my mind got a little in the way because it said to me, it was in the background, and it said, okay, Steve, are you going to hit these notes? How's your falsetto today? You're live. What are you going to do? So, but there was way in the background, and I told it to go eat shit because I was going to do it anyway. But very interesting, this part here. Those notes are very difficult for me, and I have to uber relax. So more of my attention, as soon as I heard the little voice doubting whether I was going to be able to pull off this vocal thing, I immediately took my attention out of that voice and I put it into my inner body and relaxed my body. If there's anything that you could remember from any of these Alien Guitar Secrets episodes, it's that. It's that is a powerful secret. To be able to see when your mind is fooling with you and choose to take your attention off of it. And one of the great places to go is your inner body in relaxing it because you're immediately back in the flow. And sure enough, this little vocal part here, it came out okay. Came out okay for me. I've done it better. On my eyes, I search in my galaxy. Usually I can hold that with one note. Show me how you glow. And that's my favorite. That's perhaps one of my favorite moments of performing this song is right there at that moment when I say, show me how you glow. Don't ask me why. It's just this, it's a deep emotional kind of connection. Come to me. Show me how you glow. We'll escape to the other side of space. We're forever and never, and all that's unknown is. So you see right there, one little second there that I lost. See that? That's where I lost focus for a moment because what was it? I think I was the mind came in and said, is this working? Is everything recording? Is the signal going through? Am I doing this to nobody? Mind noise. But you see the effect it had on me. Forever and never, and all that's unknown is known. Okay, so now I come out of this trance-like state, and I'm back. Hello. Thank you. Bye. Okay, Stephen, how do we get back? All right, there we go. Okay, So that was the Moon and I, and a little demonstration of finding that flow. I mean, that's the best explanation I can basically give you, or at least that's the best of my recollection. I mean, in the process that I use to create. Now, that demonstration was for a vocal song. But the same thing holds true if you're playing an instrumental song. So for instance, when I'm playing a song like, I don't know, Tender Surrender, the same thing applies. I'm relaxing my body so that I can flow elegantly, so to speak. And Tender Surrender is a very sensual song. You know, it's well, it's what the title is. It's a tender surrender. It's that moment. The song is written at least you know, that moment where two people, a man and a woman, or a man and a man, or a woman and a woman, I don't know, actually make that connection of intimacy where they're going to become more intimate. There's that little recognition. Hey, what do you say? Yeah, you want to? Yeah, I do. Okay. You know, so it's a tender surrender, and that is a frame of mind. It's a state of mind. It's a very comfortable kind of state of mind. So that is what I'm thinking when I'm performing that song. It's not thinking it. It's embracing the emotion itself. So the externals are not a part of it, but the emotion of that tender moment is the intention of the song. And a song like For the Love of God, it's the same thing. That song is about what the title says. It's about appreciation and gratitude, deep gratitude. It's a surrendering also. So that beautiful state of mind, that feeling that the title of that song inspires in me, is what I'm not thinking about, but is what I'm embracing when I perform it. So this works really good also if you're playing a song like Bad Horsey, you know, because Bad Horsey, what you just saw, that song was written, another one of those crazy dreams. And in this dream, I was on this really intense, big stallion, and we were running through these grass fields, and there was a giant locomotive that was in the fields, and because the grass was high, we couldn't see where the locomotive was going, but every place we went, this seemed to follow us. That's what happens in dreams, you know, when the thing that you don't think is going to happen happens because you're thinking about it. So as we're kind of like, I'm on this horsey, this very bad horsey, and we're racing, and then this train is just coming. So finally, the horse decided to face off with the train. So the horse turned into this sort of locomotive, breathing fire and going right for this train. So I created a picture in my mind. Well, I went to the image of the dream, and it's just really heavy. And also the main riff, as a lot of you know, came from Crossroads. I remember reading the script in Crossroads, and it said Jack Butler makes his guitar sound like a train, right? So I read that and I thought, yeah, I know how to do that. I just tune it down and just go gong gong ch gong gong, and that should do it. And I believe it did. What was very interesting in the movie, though, is how Ry Cooder mimicked what his perception of what a train sounds like on a guitar, and his was just as, if not even more dimensional, but it was very different. You know, it kind of shows you the difference in us. And but when I performed that song Bad Horsey, I am relaxing my body so that I can move relatively seamlessly, and but I'm a bad horsey in my mind, a terrible bad horsey. And that performance was for Carmen. Okay. So try that out. Try that out with one of your songs that you're going to perform. Relax, practice relaxing. Try to make that a very unconscious, competent state of mind where you're always in it. And also, a lot of people in the past have asked me, "What? I get nervous before I go on stage. How do you compete with nerves? You know, what do you do when you're so nervous?" Well, I guess I can go on to a big thing about that, but all I'll say is you really need to become present in the moment, because the thing that is making you nervous is your mind projecting into the future, even if the future is 1 minute away, and it's creating scenarios. The ego is looking at, being criticized or making a mistake, all these things that are in a fantasy future, okay? So when you're walking out on a stage, if you just become present with what you're doing, you're taking one step, you're moving over here, taking another step, walking out on the stage, seeing the people, waving, and plugging in and relaxing the inner body. So if you find yourself on stage being nervous or confused in your mind, try that. Put all your attention into your body and relax it. And once that becomes natural, you will start to see everything change. The way you listen, the way you're able to move your fingers, the way your body flows. I've always kind of loved the idea of being an entertainer. I love to perform. I love to have my body move with the guitar and with the notes. And I love to become the note. That this is what the intent, when you're performing with the intention of the song, you become the note that you're playing, so to speak. It's kind of hard to explain. But anyway, so try that out, practice relaxing, and then try practicing playing the songs that you enjoy, but focus on the meaning of the song. Go beyond the performance. What you're going to play, what you have to play has to be unconsciously competent. If you really want to reach flow, you cannot be worrying or thinking about what your hands are going to do. They just have to know where to go. You have the song structure, and then you have your improvisational periods where same rules apply, and then you have maybe melodies you're playing, same rules apply. Then you have the intention of the song. And it could be a metal song. I mean, I love playing my heavy songs because I go there, But I love playing the animal, It's just something. I love the way it feels. And Bad Horsey and a lot of those heavy songs, Valorum, things like that. And I love the ballads too. So then once you start performing your song and you don't have to worry about where your fingers are going, go deeper and deeper into the intention of the song, whatever that is. My only word of caution with that is if the intention of the song is one that evokes negative feeling intentions, then when you go there, because in order to be effective, you'll have to go there. You'll have to go, like if you're writing songs about how much you hate the world. Now, people do it, and you can hear them. Or how much your heart is broken. You might have written a song about how badly your heart was broken 5 years ago, and your heart isn't broken anymore because you've found a whole new lease on life with somebody or something else. But every time you go to perform that song, you have to go there, So you're exaggerating a frame of mind that that doesn't feel good. Now a lot of people may feel, yeah, but that's how I get my aggression out. That's how I get my that's how I work out my problems. Well, if you, I would just suggest experimenting with these things I'm talking about in regards to relaxing and becoming one with the instrument and going deeper with it, but not necessarily in an aggressive way, in a connected way. Because then what happens, even the aggression becomes something beautiful. You know, it becomes even more, aggressive isn't the word, but more intense. It becomes more intense, you know. And I've always found that to be, I respond much more to performers who are connected with that intensity as opposed to performers who are really connected with their heartache. That's fine too, and it can be very effective, but I like it when I feel empowered by somebody's performance. So check that out. All right, so that's conscious, unconscious, and competence, whatever. All right, let's get to it. Steve, you look great with short hair. Thank you, Sean. Jane. Yeah, I know I'm probably going to be, I usually grow it really long and then cut it really short, grow it long, cut it short, grow it long, cut it short. And I would have cut it already, but I can't get anybody to come to the house and cut it right now. But it will be cut soon. All right. Can you talk about the prototypes before the JEM? Okay, now I'm going to talk about the prototypes before the whole story about the JEM. Now, many of you have heard this before, but may not have seen me say it. Maybe you've seen me say it, but I'm going to give the whole story again. For those of you who have heard it, maybe you could take a break or something if you like. But let me find my notes. Okay. So I loved Strats. I loved Les Pauls when I was a kid. I hated Strats and I hated Les Pauls. They both had things that I liked, but things I didn't like. Like, for instance, I loved Strats because Hendrix played one, and it had a whammy bar. And I knew instinctually a whammy bar was going to be my right arm for the rest of my life. That's right. As soon as I saw a whammy bar, I was like, yes, please. I saw the potential in it. But I didn't like the way Strats sounded. They always sounded they didn't sound rock and roll to me. Now, I know others have made it sound rock and roll, of course. But there was always more of an attraction to the sound of a Les Paul. And Les Pauls had that chunky kind of thing going on for me, but I couldn't play them. I didn't like the way they would sit. And they didn't have whammy bars. And all these guitars only had 22 frets. So when I started working with Zappa, Frank... one of the things I learned from him that was so powerful was do what you want and don't make any excuses. And that's what he did on everything. And as a result, he was innovative in just about anything he did, including tearing guitars apart and putting them back together. And it didn't matter what kind of guitar it was. He had a Jimi Hendrix Strat that he tore apart and did whatever he wanted, because to him it was a guitar. And when I saw him doing things with guitars, I thought, well, maybe I can have a guitar made that actually is sort of like a combination of the things I like and things that I would like to have that don't exist. So before that, Super Strats started to become popular. When King Edward Van Halen, I call him King out of respect, when he came out with the one pickup Frankenstein Super Strat, the first one, that was the first time I believe that for me at least, that we were introduced in the guitar community to a Strat style guitar with a humbucker. And I said, that's it. But I didn't just want one pickup. So I started to experiment, and unfortunately, I don't have any of the pre-JEMs here. I had 4 made, and what happened was, there's anything I say, keep in mind that I've got a good memory, but it's short. And I don't remember details the way some aficionados do. I mean, a lot of times when I need to find out something about my past, I have to call Mike Mesker, my buddy. And he knows more about all my guitars than I do, that's for sure. Because they're kind of like, okay, all right, okay, next, But, Micah has been, well, he's my artistic director for many years. So anything that comes out of the Vi camp that looks good, you can thank Mike Mesker. And he's unbelievably intuitive and has guided me as a friend and also creatively for many years now. Many years. I don't know, maybe 15, 20 years now. Boy, am I lucky. Anyway, I'm surrounded by people like that. I mean, without guys like Greg and Steven and Stephanie, I would be a lamp. Okay, so where was I? So then the idea, okay, so I had then joined Alcatraz, and I knew that my Strat, because I ended up getting a Strat. I think I got it here. Yeah, here. Yeah, this is my first real guitar. Hang on. You see that? Yeah. And boy, did I love this guitar. It was my teenage guitar. And I used this all through college and high school, and with Frank Zappa all the way up to Alcatraz. Now you can see what I decided to do here is, put this humbucker in there. And this was when the Floyd first came out, and then Frank would do things like put these preamps in. This was an Alembic preamp, and really cool because it gave everything a little boost and a lot of sort of glitz. It had quite a top end to it. But, the whammy bar, the limited amount of frets, and Strats are hard to play. So I kind of started wanting to play a different kind of guitar. And Grover Jackson was friends with the guys in Alcatraz. And I went over to Grover Jackson's place, and he had some really great guitars. He had this one sort of super Strat. It was a Sunburst, and I used that. He loaned it to me, and I kind of never gave it back. And I had this really great guitar tech at the time, Elwood Patrick Francis. And Elwood was a real guitar lover, and he knew a lot about guitars. He was a really great tech. And I let him just kind of like run amok with these guitars, So he ended up taking the Sunburst Charvel and painting it green, and then putting stickers on it, and that became the Green Meanie. And that was the guitar I used all through Eat 'em and Smile for the most part, Dave Roth. But as I was going on tour with Dave, I knew I needed some more guitars. I needed to have backups. So I went to this little shop in Hollywood called Performance Guitar. And they had, guitar bodies and everything. And I think Cooney was the guy's name, really great guy. And I bought some bodies and some necks and reshaped certain things on it to be a little more in line with kind of like what I was looking for, because I like the Strat shape, but they just look so pedestrian to me. I love them, but they weren't sexy enough, So I started to kind of reshape the body with some sharper edges. And then we were going out on tour, and I'm a little cloudy as to how things came together, but I remember handing all the pieces to Elwood, Patrick Francis, and telling him, okay, can you have these guitars built, put together a particular way with these pickups and whatever. And he got with a guy, Gavin Menzies. And Gavin, I think, actually constructed the guitars. Probably Elwood would know better than me, but I know that at the end of it, I had 4 guitars, and they were basically gems. They were the exact specs, basically, to what turned into the Gem. Now, there was the Annie Fanny guitar, Pre-JEM, and that I ended up selling many years ago for charity. I tried to buy it back, but but it's too expensive. There was the Playboy guitar that Elwood had put all these Playboy stickers on, and that was a pain in the ass, that guitar. It just kept not working, and I remember the last show of I think it was the Eat 'em and Smile tour. We were in Florida, and I was I was on stage and I'm playing, and I was playing the Playboy guitar, and it just kept going in and out and in and out, and it was doing that the whole tour, and I just got so upset. This is the kind of guy I was back then. After the show, I smashed it into tiny little pieces and flushed it down the toilet. Most of it. That was my arrogant rock star moment. Yeah. So that guitar is gone. Then there was the Cowgirl guitar, which was another. And this was like a root beer guitar, and that exists. I gave that to my friend Ray Shear. He's a very good friend, and he's a guitar collector. He has probably the premier archtop collection in the world. So then I had one more left, and it's the Bones gem. And I had it here in the studio, but it went to the Metropolitan Museum for a display. And it was really funny when they came to pick it up. These guys came and they were wearing like hazmat suits and stuff. There was like 4 guys all like dressed in, sort of like they were in the middle of a coronavirus. So they come in and they're like touching, they got handling the guitar like this. And I'm like, shit, man, I'd throw that thing around. Holy mackerel. So I think I would probably have it back now, but because of this lockdown, I think it's at another museum someplace. The Green Meanie is in a museum too. I can't remember which one. The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I think it's there. And that big triple neck, the white triple neck, that's in a museum in Phoenix. Yeah. So I don't have any here to show you, but I can tell you they were gems. And then when I started touring with Dave with these guitars, there was a momentum in my career, and the guitar companies were interested in having me play their guitars. This was an endorsement. The endorsements were coming at me. And I always felt a little odd about endorsements. I always felt, well, I don't want to be locked down to having to play any one thing, And, but all of the big manufacturers at that time had approached me, and I said, okay, well, I'll tell you what. Here is the specs for the guitar that I want, and I showed them the Gem the Pre-JEM that I had, and well, you know what? Let me do this. Here's Evo. See that? Okay, let me do this. Hang on. Okay, so. Some of the things, many of you have seen me do this before, so it might get a little boring. But anyway, I wanted 24 frets, and that was something that was not very common at the time. As far as I know, it was non-existent. Maybe, I think Jackson had guitars with 24 frets. But, and then I had the last 4 frets scalloped, and that was inspired by Billy Sheehan. That was his idea. And it works really good. Thanks, Bill. I wanted a cutaway that fit my hand perfectly. I could never understand why these guitars, Strats and Les Pauls and whatever, would give you these high notes, but you could never reach them. Duh. So I made this cutaway so that my hand had no problem up here. I can reach these notes. Then there was the pickup configuration, and this was something that was unique at the time. I didn't realize it. They tell me it was the first time something like this happened, but this was the 5-position switch, and the way that I wanted it wired, because I love the sound of humbuckers in the neck and the treble position, but I also like that stratty sound, when you get the 2 single coil pickups. So we wired this so that we have a single coil here, and when we're in this position here, it splits the coil here, so you get 2 single coils. And that gives you that nice tubey Strat sound, Never going to sound like a Strat, really, because Strats, the whole construction is different. But if you listen to a lot of the songs in my catalog that have that tubey Strat kind of sound, this position, I use it quite often. And then same thing here, that's the middle position. Then you go here and it does the same thing with these two. So you get a more higher end, cleaner kind of a thing. And then that's just balls out this pickup. Now at the time, I had used some, I think I was using X2N DiMarzio pickups or something like that. And then I started a relationship with Larry DiMarzio, and then we started to develop signature pickups. So then there was the body, which I kept very kind of angular because I liked it. I thought it was kind of rock and roll and kind of sexy, you know, sexy. Kind of guitar even looks a bit like me. Okay, what else was there? Okay, I could never understand why whammy bars didn't go up until I took a look at the Floyd and realized that the only thing stopping it was this wood here. So I chopped it out on the Green Meanie, and next thing you know, I had a floating tremolo. And they tell me that that's the first real floating tremolo with that kind of span, you know. And then Ibanez made the very decorative claw-looking design. So what else? Anything else about this guitar? So then when I took it to Ibanez, I took it to all these guitar manufacturers, and they all like gave me back their guitar with my name on it. I'm like, well, thanks, but that's not my guitar. Except for Ibanez. I mean, they came back in 2.5 weeks. They came back with a prototype for me. Well, the first prototype they gave me was kind of like, it was this weird snakeskin looking guitar that I thought was hideous, and I hated it. Sorry, guys, I did. I hated it. And it wasn't my guitar. But they quickly, oh, come on. Okay, so, but they then made me a prototype JEM, and it was everything I could have hoped for. It was everything. It was just perfect. And at the last minute, many of you may know that my dear friend Joe DeSpagni, who passed away, we were childhood, kindergarten, all the way through our whole life, best friends. And he was a luthier, and he actually made the name of his company was JEM, Joe JEM Guitars. And I always tried to help Joe kind of get kickstarted with his company. I'd, help him out with various things. And we actually, I decided to call the JEM for my buddy Joe, Joe DeSpagni. So then Joe used to do these crazy types of things. And in one of the guitars he was making for me, I asked him to put a handle in it just for the kicks, and he would do things like that. So there was something about that I kind of got a kick out of, and I thought, well, okay, this JEM has got a lot of kind of unique features. I would assume that they're going to be maybe used in other guitars. If this guitar can inspire other guitar manufacturers, you'd probably start seeing things like this, and that's what happened, and that's fine. That's how it works. I'm so happy when I see those kinds of things. It means that I was being innovative, and I didn't even know it. So then I thought, well, there's one thing that nobody's going to copy because it's just too insane. It's too quirky. It's just way too vi. And that was the handle. And I actually did it because we were going to be shooting a David Lee Roth video, and I wanted to be able to grab the guitar and swing it around. So that was the JEM. And then when Ibanez had handed me this guitar, I just thought, oh my goodness, this is fantastic. Much better than my Pre-JEMs. And they said, well, we'd like to make this for other people. And I thought, I don't know who else would be interested. It's so particular to my idiosyncrasies. They said, well, Mr. Steve, I think that you'd be surprised. And boy, was I, because I think we were all surprised, that the success, because once Ibanez released the JEM, it just took off. And they had come to me and asked if they could make a lower end model exactly like the JEM, except without the handle, just to kind of bring the expense down. And that became the RG. And the RG, so it's sort of like a sister to the JEM, and that RG has gone on to be one of the world's, it's sometimes second and sometimes third biggest seller. In some countries it's 2, in some countries it's 3. Number 1 is a Strat, number 2 is a Les Paul or a RG. Now I know there's people that may go out and discuss this and argue that point, and maybe they're correct. This is just the information I received. And I ask, because it's very interesting to know that. So the success of the JEM blew us out of the water. 35 years. And I know its consistency because I receive royalty checks for it. And it is the gift that keeps on giving. And I have you to thank for that, and Ibanez. But it is a great guitar, and it served me well. I will occasionally use other guitar. I have all sorts of other guitars. No matter how much I'm attached to a JEM, they're never going to sound like a Firebird, or ES330, a Gibson. So I have all those guitars for particular textures and stuff, but you know how I play. There's no way I could play Bad Horsey on any other guitar but a JEM. It just wouldn't, for me at least, in my mind, I can't even negotiate it. It just wouldn't work. It's not even apples, and it's like apples, comparing apples and beef yogurt. It's just so. I will occasionally use other guitars for certain textures, but I would say 80 to 85% of the guitar tracks that I record are with the JEM, and usually they're Evo or Flow. Okay, so then I am told that the JEM is the most successful signature guitar. And last time I said that, people say, no, Les Paul. From what I understand, the Les Paul is not a signature guitar, but I don't want to get into any of that. Never mind, I said it. But it is the second longest running one. First longest running signature guitar is, who is it? I'll remember and I'll let you know later. Good memory, short. So then, 35 years, through probably about after the 15-year mark, I started thinking, we tried fooling around with different monkey grips, in the past. And there was one version of the JEM that we released that had it's a root beer color, and it had just like a hole, no grip. It came and went pretty quick. It wasn't very attractive, not bad, but it seemed more, I don't know. It didn't have a real elegance to it. But the idea to give the JEM a pretty substantial facelift was always kind of in the background. Now, through the years, obviously, the JEM has gone through many different aesthetic changes and pickup changes and maybe some electronic changes. But the guitar itself, the body of the guitar hasn't really changed, and the basic configuration hasn't really changed. And I thought it was time to do that. So we started probably 4 years ago and working with Ibanez is so fantastic. It's so nice to be Steve Vai working with Ibanez, I just have to tell you, because they're like this with all their artists, I believe, very attentive, very creative. They have an unbelievably creative department that many of these guitars through the years, the JEMs, actually were suggested by them, like the DNA. So when it came time to start constructing the ideas for the new guitar, I knew that some of the changes I wanted. This is the PIA. This is the Envy Green PIA. Chair up a little bit. You see that okay? Okay, so what was it that I want? First thing I knew, I wanted to smooth out the edges a little bit and give it this kind of indentation here, so because when you sit on it now, it doesn't tear your boob apart. You know, it's more comfortable. And same thing down here. And it's a little softer of an edge. It's got a little more of a feminine vibe with this kind of edge, which I like. I like the feminine vibe. And this worked good, so that took some time. And there was a couple of features I knew I wanted to have, which I had incorporated into the JEM, and one of them is this capacitor pull on the volume knob. Have you ever noticed when you turn the volume down on a normal volume pot, sometimes it gets cloudy, it gets woolly, you know? So this, you click that and it kicks in a capacitor that shelves out a lot of that bottom end, so your chords and stuff when you turn down will be very clean. So that's stock in the PIA. Now what you're seeing here is not stock, and I'll explain that in a minute, because there's certain things that I like in a guitar that I don't know if you would like, so we didn't include them, and for other reasons that I'll explain. So the other things that were different, we fooled around with the inlay. Now this was a great project. I so much enjoyed playing with this inlay. Can you see that? Because Ibanez had sent me a program with and they had I don't know, 30 different neck inlay designs. And I was able to, with this illustration program, take little pieces and move them around until we got this. Now, before I talk about this design here, I want to tell you about this, okay? What is this? Why? It doesn't grip like a JEM. It wasn't supposed to. Nothing will ever grip like a JEM. I don't think another design is possible that's more comfortable in holding a guitar. But we wanted to do something different. So we fooled around with a couple of different designs, and nothing was doing it for me. There was things I liked, but I didn't have that aha moment, you know? So then Hoshino had brought to me all these various kinds of illustrations, and one of them had like a little teardrop. It was this little it looked like a teardrop. Wasn't quite like this, but sort of like that. And I started looking at it, and I said, okay. So then I started to imagine what it would be like to have two of them like this in some kind of order. So Hoshino made a program for me so I could actually move these around in an illustration until it felt right. But first they had made a prototype with these, and it wasn't right. You know, it didn't look right. I didn't have the aha moment. But then once I was fooling around with the program, I mean, it took a long time just to get it until it's like, there it is. There it is. And I had great backup because all the folks, the creative folks at Hoshino were right there with me, you know. But ultimately the decision had to be mine. And when I finally tweaked this to the point where it was exactly in this location, I had an aha moment. I was like, there it is, there it is, there it is, there it is. Don't touch it, there it is. Don't ask me how you know when you do things, and you know when it's right, right? You just know. So that's what you wait for, and if that doesn't happen, you keep waiting for it, or you keep experimenting until it happens. And then Hoshino came up with the idea of doing this indentation here, which I thought was brilliant. So what does it signify? Okay, so they're like teardrops, but there was something very reminiscent of the yin and yang sign that I really like, because yin and yang shows balance, and also there's something romantic about the way it looks in that sense, that it shows this balance. And it's also was inspired, oddly enough, by this particular bee, honeybee. I can't remember the name of it. It's a weird kind of a name. And what they do is they sleep kind of like in a 69 position in a flower. They sleep in flowers. So this, I felt it would be better. It was more reminiscent to me of a petal, a flower petal, as opposed to a teardrop. You know, they're the same kind of. But also they reminded me of the bees. This was charming little photo of these bees sleeping like this in the petals. They were asleep in the petals. And so there's a lot of various, it's like it's got the yin and yang, it's got the petal design, but it's also just situated in a way that's just really moving to me. So we decided, let's kind of take this and insinuate it throughout the rest of the guitar design in various ways. So that's when a lot of these angles that you see that we cut, and even here and various reshapings, have dimensional resonance sort of with these teardrops, with these petals, so that when you look at it, it's kind of like a subliminal knowing, as opposed to, oh, I see that they cut this so that it's in proportion to that, you know. But then now when you take a look at these, the inlay, you can see the petals throughout the inlay through the whole thing. And then, of course, there's the pickup covers. Now these, I have a special pickup on here. It's a Sustainiac. So normally I got my pink PIA in the other room, and that has all three of the pickup covers. But you know what? I'm not gonna go get it. You can imagine. And these pickup covers were designed by Mike Mesker. You could see the flair of his creativity in that, and him and Larry worked on this. I mean, it's so interesting when you look at it, what's underneath it, and it's just festooned with the petals, you know, that's in there, and it just adds so much. And I just fell in love with it. And you know, we did some special touches like these knobs here and stuff. And then in the back, that's just an access to a battery for the sustainer. But one of the things that always kind of drove me crazy was the back plate and the screws. And you know, whenever I needed to get in here to adjust the springs, which is quite often, or these things here, you know, my trem setters, you have to take this thing off, you know, and hope you don't lose the screws, all 6 of them. So Thomas actually started to create my back plates with Velcro, because he's the Velcro king. But then with Ibanez, you know, they came up with the idea of doing it like this with the magnet. Hello. Now, some of you might be wondering, what the heck is this? Okay. So when you have a floating tremolo system, they can be a challenge. When they're truly floating, they're a pain in the ass sometimes. To try to tune the guitar, you turn one string, the whole guitar kind of moves. So it's like 20 questions every time you got to tune, right? And I just wanted something that could alleviate that, because also I have a tendency to put my wrist on the bridge, and every time I would do that, it would go sharp on a real floating system. So we started fooling around with these and I may have the terminology wrong, and Mike Origo can probably correct me if I'm wrong in all this. He's my main guy at Ibanez, and he's watching. Hi, Mike. Thanks for everything. So what this does is it's kind of an interesting device. You see the bridge? I mean the block? How the block... Let me see if I can... See how the block moves? Well, with the trem setter, these tips here rest right on the block so that if I go to pull, oops, they kind of, the block rests. So this kind of helps when, helps tuning, it helps intonation. There's a potential, well, I'll get to that later. So then there's the other thing that's unique to my guitars that are not in the production model guitars, PIAs, is the sustainer. Okay, I like to have sustainers in some of my guitars. I usually use the Fernandez for many years. Matter of fact, I think I got one of the first few when they came out. But they were a little inconsistent at times, and it was kind of a small company, and it wasn't practical to buy enough of them and put them in signature guitars. So that's why we never released a JEM with a Fernandez sustainer. Now, the Sustainiac is a different system, and it was one that I had played with in the past, and there was things about it that I really liked, but there was things I didn't, I thought needed a little work. So I chose the Fernandez, but these days they've come a long way, the Sustainiacs. And with these guitars, I had two of them have Sustainiacs and one of them has a Fernandez, so I could fool around and see what I like. And there's things about the Sustainiac, which is this system, that are very appealing, like their consistency. You know if you buy one, the next one's going to be just as good. What else is really nice about it? You can get a lot of them. The company is, I believe, the company is healthy and strong. So this now opened up the idea, how about putting a Sustainiac in a signature guitar? And we're playing with this idea. It's not definite, but because the Sustainiac is fantastic, but there's still some things about it that I want to tweak. I want to tweak the sound of the pickup. It's not entirely my mojo, so to speak. And also there's just a couple little things with the functionality of it. But I before lockdown and before all that, I was exchanging emails with the company, and we may be working on something. So if that all pans out, there is potential for a signature series with a sustainer, but it has to be right before I offer it to you. I don't want to offer something that is going to be inconsistent or isn't exactly what I would use. But we're just not there quite yet. Also, I scallop my necks a little bit. I kind of like that, just a little. I started doing that some years ago. Some guitars, maybe, I don't know. What do you think, Mike? Maybe 50% of my guitars have scalloped. The ones that I play have slight scallops. This one a little more. I don't know if I'll be offering that. I'd be interested in hearing from you guys to see if a real signature PIA, the one that Steve plays, if it came with scallop frets, how would you feel about that? And the other thing is obviously the trem setter. That's still in discussion, because it's a little tricky because you got to know how to set it up. And if you just ship a guitar with a trem setter that's not set up, it can be confusing for people. So we're still toying with these ideas. So then I had all these great elements, and when the guitar came in and I opened the case, I was stunned. I have to tell you, I was stunned. It's the most beautiful, for me at least, the most beautiful guitar. All of them, the four of them, they come in four colors. There's the gold, sundew, and then there's this envy green. There's stallion white, and there's panther pink. And I had the guitars on music stands in the studio, and every time I would even pass them, my heart would just go, I just would have to stop and look at it and go, really? Really? Are you really that beautiful? Hey, it's okay to love your guitar. And so I thought, with all this wonderful symmetry, I got to come up with a name. So that was easy. It's called the PIA. See that? And if you noticed, of course, Mike Mesker did that illustration there for the PIA, and that has it's the pedal grip in various dimension there, and PIA stands for Paradise in Art, but it also happens to be my immortal beloved, and that's another reason I love this guitar so much. And if it wasn't for my wife Pia, this guitar would be very different, especially the colors. So I think that's... Am I forgetting anything? Mike Origo, send me a text if I'm forgetting something. But you know what I do have? I'm going to go through the real specific specs for you. All right. So the neck, the neck on the Pia, it's a 5-piece maple and walnut, and the body is alder. I like alder. I've experimented with many different body types in the past. I just like the tonality of it. The fretboard is rosewood fretboard, and the name of the inlay is the Pia Blossom, because it's Pia Blossom. The fret wire. Now this was something I love. Big frets. You know, I love jumbo frets. And for this guitar, this was for the Pia, we went with stainless steel. So stainless steel frets, for those of you that know, they're harder. They are a little brighter. They are a little more. They could take a beating. You know, you really take a beating, but they destroy your strings. But that's not a problem, because the Ernie balls that I use just are almost undestroyable or indestructible. Okay. It's the frets are Prestige fret edge treatment, and obviously it has 24 frets. The bridge is the edge tremolo bridge, and the JEM has seen many different permeations of various kinds of bridges that came along. The string spacing is 10.8 millimeters. The neck pickup, now that was another great opportunity to, with the Pia, to design a new pickup. And for those of you who are interested in hearing how that goes, it was a great project with DiMarzio. I have various kinds of sets of signature series pickups that I've released with Larry, with DiMarzio. You have the Evo, the Breed, the various different ones. But for the Pia, we wanted to do something a little different. So what I usually do, it's a big, long process when it comes time to develop a new pickup. First, I listen to the pickups I'm using, and I decide how do I want to change, because I'm always looking to change at some point. And I knew that the guitars that the Evo had evolutions, and I knew that I wanted a little more top end, and I wanted to tighten up the bottom, and I definitely wanted to pull some mids. So Larry's DiMarzio would send me. They sent me pick guards, 5 different pick guards with 3 different pickups in each, and I would take one guitar and put the pick guard in it, because any kind of different guitar you use, even if it's made out of the same materials, is going to sound different. So I would then record something with the one set of pickups, and then change the pick guard and play the same thing and record it. So you do this 5 times, and you listen to, and each time I'm playing through every pickup, every combination of pickups, clean, dirty. So it's quite a lot of experimenting. And then I listen back and I choose. And then eventually I chose 3 pickups out of the 15 that came and sent those back with comments. And I got another 5 pick guards filled with pickups. So we did this like 3 times. This is a very intensive forensic audio focus here. But that's how we came up with the pickups for the new pickups, the new DiMarzio pickups that are in the PIA, and they're called the Utopias. Utopia. All right. And the neck position is passive ceramic. The middle pickup passive Alnico. The bridge pickup is passive ceramic. What else? What else? Neck dimensions. Okay, I usually like a very, very thin neck. The GEMs have very thin necks. They I just like that. It sounds odd because I have such big hands, but I like thin necks. But they're a problem on tour because you take them from the backstage area to the stage, and the next. So for the Pias, I decided to try a thicker neck, a little thicker. And frankly, I like it, but I want it just a little thin. I want to split the difference. So that might be in the next, the next version of the PIA. I'm not sure yet. All these things are under discussion. Actually, at this moment, I've been talking with Mike Origo on this. But the dimensions of the neck as it exists now are 648 millimeters, which is a 25.5 inch scale length. The width at the nut is 43 millimeters. Width at the 24th fret is 58 millimeters. Thickness at the first fret is 18 millimeters. The thickness overall is 20 millimeters at the 12th fret. And the radius is 430 MRNR. MMR. Okay, so I could never remember all this stuff because it's absolutely, I mean, I know this info when we're doing it, but I just can't retain it. It's almost meaningless to me. I know I should, but I can't. I'll try. But here, I got it written down. So, lime dye, scalp, fret bar. No. There you go. All right, so that's the PIA. And a lot of people have been asking me about it, and I wanted to review it. I don't know if I'm forgetting anything. Let me see if anybody actually texted me. Okay, Mike, 16-inch radius, haha. So, okay, Mike's telling me. Hey, Steve, I'm at the, okay, hi, Steve, technically our trem setter is, okay. Mike said, technically, our trem setter is called the Ibanez backstop. So that trem setter, that's what I mean by terminology, I forget. So it's called a backstop. And that's the one, Mike, that's the one that Ibanez makes, right? Okay, he'll answer that in a minute. Okay. All right, so that's the PIA. And it's so nice to know that guitar, when it was released at NAMM just recently, it sold out. Unbelievable. The sales went through the roof. It's a as they're telling me, a runaway success. So that's really nice. Now, it does not mean that the GEM is going anywhere. We're still working on that. I love the GEM. I still will probably play Evo now and then, although I actually am, very comfortable with the PIAs. So, for those who are asking what the next one is going to be like and why does he have a sustainer and we don't, and why is his, well, I just explained all that. And I will be having my minions look into your comments to see what you guitar players feel about some of the features that you might like to see on the next PIA. Right now, the PIA is the high-end guitar, and, well, they're all high-end. So, like I say, we're right in that period right now where we're kind of fooling around with what to do next. And perhaps your help Can be helpful. All right. Okay, I'm going to move on now. How much time? Oh, okay, just a few quick questions. Okay, from Jason Noxon. This is a difficult question, but how does one get comfortable with being themselves? I was always bummed that I couldn't play like you because I didn't know or wasn't happy with me and my playing. Is this a question? Yeah, and it's a very good question, and it's a very common question. And it's a question I used to ask. Give me a minute. How does one get comfortable being themselves? Well, maybe that's a good question for under it all, but I'll do my best here. When you see, let's just say hypothetically, you watch another performer and they are connected and they are inspiring you and you feel, I want to be like that. There's a difference between being like that and being the essence like that. So what I mean by that is to be inspired by another player means that that other player is doing something and they're being themselves, meaning there's certain things, there's an attraction to a certain style that they like, there's an attraction to the way that they move, they are comfortable in their skin. I'll take me for example. Steve Vai likes to move a certain way. That's just part of the Steve Vai guy. You know, he likes to make funny faces. This just happens. I can't control it. I don't try to anymore. I know that it's awkward sometimes. Too bad. I'm not stopping it because that's part of the thing that is natural to me. Other things that are natural to me, I'm a ham. You know, meaning I'm a kind of a show-off performer. You know, I like that. I like to perform the best I can. I don't have budgets for I don't really want them. You know, I like what just in the confines of the space that I have, being connected in a certain way. And as a result, you hear weird things, quirky things come out of me. So that's me just being me. And the good news is you don't have a choice. You'll always be you. The thing is to appreciate you. So now, the way you find you is you have to first know that your unique style is there. And it is. I'm here to tell you that there's nothing you can do to disrupt your style. I mean, what I should say is, yes, you can disrupt its expression, but it's in you. You just have to become comfortable with it. And one of the ways you can do that is when you see someone like me. You said, I was always bummed that I couldn't play like you. You're never going to play like me, and I'm never going to play like you, and I'm never going to play like Hendrix or Jimmy Page, and they're never going to play like me, and they're just never going to, no one's ever going to sound just like somebody else. You are the best you that there is. and get comfortable with that. Enjoy that. Now, the only thing that's going to disrupt that in your mind is criticism from the outside world, and that's where you need to exercise your independence and turn a blind ear to it. Of course, there may be certain critiques that can be helpful in guiding you, but in reality, if you're confused about being yourself, it's only because other people are telling you that you shouldn't be, or that what you're doing is weird, or not good, or whatever. And I've had my fair share of that, trust me. The weird, quirky Steve Vai has gotten tremendous criticism over what he wears, and there's the face that he makes, and the way he moves. But I can't sell my independence, because that's not fair to myself or the people who like the real weird guy that you see. So you don't want to be. So you need to find within yourself those very simple preferences that are there, but you may not have necessarily been respecting because you thought that you needed to be like that to have it. I'm pointing at me now because that's what you wrote. Or somebody else. Or somebody else is telling you that those things that feel natural and good to you are not good. Okay, this is where you have to find your independence from the opinion of others, or you will never be your free self. You'll never find it because you'll always be guessing and second guessing. Your natural free self will flow through you when you create an opening for it. And it comes with the unconscious competence that I was talking about in the beginning. So try, if you can, to sit and clear your mind of trying to be like, let's say, because you wrote it, play like me. But what you want is to be able to emanate confidence in what you're doing. So what would that feel like? That's the question. And the answer is in that question. That's how you will find yourself. What would it feel like? What does it actually feel like in your mind, in your body, to go someplace that is perfectly suited for you? So what are those things? That in order to find those things, it requires you to eliminate academics from playing. You eliminate all the theory, all of the cool guitars that you wish you had, or what other people are playing. You got to eliminate everything. You have to find an opening, and this is what I talk about in Under It All. You just got to be present for a moment, and then you kind of listen in here. You listen inside to the voice of your instincts, of your creative instincts. You create an opening for it, and then when you play, you look for those things. You look, and because at first you're just going to be doing your scales because it's a habit you got to break. Just doing the academics. Oh, there's my Stevie Ray Vaughan riffs. Whoa, there's my Steve Vai riffs. Okay, but I don't feel like Steve Vai. I don't look like Stevie Ray Vaughan when he's in the moment and when he's, connected. You got to do away with all that. Eventually, you'll play something, and oh, that was cool. I never really heard that. Let me find more of that, And as soon as you find a little thread of something that feels good to you, that's different, you throw yourself into it, and you exaggerate it. Just exaggerate it. Pull it apart. So then what happens is you start becoming comfortable playing things that are within your comfort zone. And then if you review the first part of this episode where I was talking about conscious competence and all this, you go through that period where your hands and your hands don't have to worry about what to do. You've got enough technique. Your mind doesn't have to worry about what key or scale or chord or anything like that because you already worked on that. There's already an understanding of all that. So you have an open field of expression, and you just enjoy letting it come out. And what'll happen is your mind has a momentum of thinking of things like, well, people aren't going to like that riff, so I shouldn't do it. Okay, that's not you. That's not who you really are. Okay, and what I meant by that is you may come across something unique and cool and interesting to you that's not Stevie Ray Vaughan or Joe Satriani or Steve Vai or whoever you may have been practicing. And then a little voice may come in and say, well, that riff that you came up with that you really like, that doesn't really sound like anybody else, be careful with that because it could ruin your reputation. Not knowing that it's the thing that creates your reputation. But more so, it creates a connection with the guitar. So that's that. I hope that was helpful. What else do we got here? Steve, hi. Could you share some of the backing tracks you are using to jam? Yes, well, actually, you can get them all. They're called naked tracks. And I offer them that you can get them online. Almost every song I've released has a naked track to it, and you can go to iTunes or whatever and check it out, and you can jam along. The one that I was using that you were referring to was a little piece. Oh, it was "And We Are One." I don't know if I released that one yet, so you might have to wait. Okay. Do you remember? I'm not going to get into this now. Maybe I should. Okay. I'm from Argentina. Do you remember what hospital in Buenos Aires hurt your arm? Sorry for that question. I don't know how you found that out. I sometimes allude to the fact that I had to change my style at one time because of an arm injury that I had. And the story. All right, I'll tell the story. Are you ready? Okay. If you're squeamish, turn away. Don't shoot the messenger. I'm going to get in trouble for this. Okay. So there I was on tour, traveling the world. And when you do this, you go to different countries, you go through different borders, you're drinking different water, you're eating different food, and your body has to adjust. So one of those adjustments usually takes place when you go from America to Mexico to South America. It's just an adjustment because of the food and the water and things like that. And it's not bad. Usually takes a day. Maybe you get a little bit of Montezuma's Revenge. And this was years ago. I don't remember what tour, but it was a G3 tour. And we're playing in Mexico and we're going to South America. So most people got the Montezuma's Revenge in Mexico, except for me. I got something different this time, and it was the opposite. I actually couldn't. I wasn't passing anything. I didn't poop for like 10 days. Okay, there, I said it. And it was not fun. You get very sick, very sick. And by the time we got to, I don't want to mention the cities or anything. We were playing in a city in South America, and I was so sick. I had to go on. You always have to go on. You got to play anyway. And you find the strength for that. This was going to be a tough one. And they had the doctor from the venue come and talk to me. And he said, I can't really do anything for you here. You have to come to the hospital tomorrow. And I'm like, oh, I don't want to go to a hospital here. But I was talked into it, so I went. And the conditions in this hospital, I had never seen anything like it. I was ushered into the critical area because the emergency room was so packed. And this place was filthy, filthy. When I got there, I could hardly walk, and they put me on this table, and there was a blood stain on the table this big. Okay, I told you this is not a fun story, but it does have its funny moments. All right. So all the people in this room were at intensive care, and they were very sick and dying. And there I was laying on this bed, and the guy right in the bed next to me was like, the things were going in his heart and everything. And across the room was this guy laying on this table. And he had all the things hooked up to him. He was a big guy. He must have been like 350 pounds. And he had a blanket over him. And I'm just sitting there watching all this. And sure enough, the big guy on the table was and I'm like, holy shit, this guy just died. So the people come charging in, and they got So I'm watching all this and they got this guy on the table, and they pull his thing off, and he's naked, and he's like 350, 400 pounds like this, and he's dead, right? And they put these things on him, and they shock him, and he goes. And sure enough, and they pack up their stuff and they leave. So I'm like, holy shit, man, I got to get out of here. And I didn't want to tell anybody who I was because, what happens is they don't know who you are, but they assume that you're this very famous person. And when they assume that, everything changes around you. People just act differently. So I didn't want that, but somebody was one of the nurses was at the show the night before, so she knew that's Steve Vai, you know. So that changed everything too. So I'm laying there, and remember, I still hadn't gone to the bathroom in 10 days, and I'm very, very sick. And this doctor comes in. Now everybody's a little different, you know. And they had to give me an enema. And the doctor is examining me, and he's got, I don't know why, but he had to, you know, he's got his finger up, he's got his stethoscope, and he's got the stethoscope on my stomach, and he's got his finger up my bum, and he actually looks at me and goes, "He doesn't sound like a guitar." I gotta get out of here. So I said, okay, let me try to go to the bathroom again. So I had this intravenous, and they first were trying to put the intravenous in my arm here, right? And this poor woman, she didn't know what she was doing. She was just pounding holes in my arm, right? And I'm like, motherfucker, what are you doing? You know? And so then she tried this arm, and she found a vein. So she got that. I got the intravenous. So when it came time for me to, hey, Steve, can you hear me? Steven.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Am I going too far with all this? Okay, all right. I'm going to keep going. Mike Mesker, if I'm going too far with this, would you please text me? Okay, so there I am. I have to go to the bathroom, and the nurse just unclips the intravenous from the bag and hands me the whole... Yeah, so she hands me the whole thing, and I'm walking down the hallway, and I've got my intravenous, and it's tied off. And I go into this bathroom. That's what it was called, a bathroom. They called it a bathroom. There was this much sawdust and dirt on the floor. And for some phenomenal reason unknown to me to this day, the bathroom door locked from the outside. So I was in this bathroom, and nothing happened. Nothing passed, you know? So I was feeling worse than ever, and I'm trying to get out of this bathroom now, and the door's locked. I'm banging on the door about how much strength I had. So finally somebody comes, and by this time the blood in the hose was it was like dark. And I'm like, something is not right here. I don't know, but it doesn't look right to me. I don't know anything about it, but I'm in a hospital. They should take care of me, right? So I go back into the room, and I show the nurse the cable and the blood, and I say, is this right? This doesn't look right, right? So she takes the thing, and she plugs it into my arm, and she turns the little knob, and all of that coagulated blood shoots into my arm. Well, if you can imagine what it would feel like if the inside of your arm was on fire, that's what it felt like. And I remember as soon as it went, I was just like, and of course the nurse she was in control. She was taking care of the rock star, and she's going, "Oh, it's fine," you know. And she's patting my arm, and I'm just like, "That's it. I'm out of here." I ripped all the shit out and got out of that place quick. And the next day was the last day on the tour. And I forget where the gig was. I think it was in Buenos Aires. And I really had to go. They took me to a private German hospital. And it was immaculate. And they fixed me up. I went in there. I was so sick. And it was immaculate. And they gave me this. So they had to give me another enema. So this is another funny story. Okay, so I'm laying there, right? And I'm in this room, and I am just dying. I've got a robe on, and I'm just laying there like this in this room. And coming out of my butt is a hose, and it's up on, you know, it's got like a bag on the end of it. And I'm just like biding my time, meditating, you know, just trying to not be there. And I look through the door, and there's this janitor, and he's going past the door, you know, he's going like, it's kind of like he's going, yeah. This kind of thing, right? So now I know the look on people's face when they recognize me. It's like Steve Vai sighting, I call it. You could just tell, you know. So I'm laying there like this, and I know this guy knows who I am, and sure enough, he's cleaning the floor in the hallway. He has to clean the floor in the room. He comes in the room. He comes up to me, and he pulls out a piece of paper and a pencil, and he says, Mr. Vai, can you sign this for me? He's asking me to sign an autograph, and I'm laying there like this, coming out of my ass, you know. And I know that if I don't sign it, he is going to ask me when I leave, and I would just have to do it, and he would still be moving around and poking his head in and doing it. So I said, "Oh, I'll sign it for you. I'll sign it for you." I'm signing this tube, and I'm doing this, and he's like, "Oh, thank you very much." I'm like, it's okay, thank you. Go, thank you. So he goes, and I'm laying there, and this guy comes back with a camera. That's right. And he comes up to me, and I'm laying there, and I see him walk in the room with the camera, and I'm like, oh. And he comes up to me, and he goes, Mr. Vai, can I take your picture? And all I said to him was, get the fuck out now. So he was gone. But anyway, I'm happy to say it worked. And I got cleaned out in a big way. And I got on a plane the next day, and I flew home. And I thought everything was okay, but it wasn't. Unfortunately. This is where the screwy part comes in. When we landed, I noticed that all the veins in my arm were hard as a rock. Not a rock, but they were really hard, all the way up this one, and they were sticking out. It looked weird, you know? And I'm like, this doesn't look right. And the next day, or maybe even later that day, I was in a mall, and I'm driving, and all of a sudden, my ear, it started screaming, and it was distorted, and it was a minor third low. So like if I was to pick up a phone and hear, it'd be, it'd be just down like a minor third. I thought, oh boy, something's wrong. So I immediately called the doctor. He sent me immediately to get brain scans, and I got these brain scans, and they put me on heavy doses of prednisone, and it all worked out. It was fine. I mean, it was, from what I understand, these, it's very dangerous because that's how you get clots. You can have things like strokes. It might have even been a mini stroke or something, But another little interesting bit of trivia, the brain surgeon, the doctor that was doing the brain scans, was Dr. Einzig. He was Mikey Einzig's dad from Incubus. That's kind of weird, but that's, yeah. And I was fortunate because they were able to take care of it on time, but as a result, what happens is, in the inside of your veins, you have this very thin membrane. It's like a one-cell membrane that protects the inside of the brain. And if it gets damaged, you can develop what's called phlebitis, I guess. So that kind of affected my picking hand. And it's kind of odd because I used to pick really quick. I used to do a lot. Maybe you've seen some of that in some of my past videos and stuff where it's... And I used to pick every note. But after this, I had to kind of reinvent my style a little bit because to this day, my picking hand and even the strumming, it's not quite, it's when I get into that stratosphere of picking and playing fast, the connection, it's kind of like this latency. And you can't have latency when you're picking and your finger is... it was fine, though, because I made lemonade out of lemons because I just decided to do more sort of legato and stuff, which I prefer. And I actually discovered that I don't really even like this. Not I don't like it, but I'm not so much attracted to like fast picking riffs that go up and down. I do it occasionally, don't not as fast as I used to, but not nearly as much as I used to because I can't. But I've developed the left hand more. So that's one thing. When people say, "Have you ever had any problems with your arms or your hands or your wrists or fingers or anything like that?" These things can come as a guitar player. We're dealing with flesh and blood and things like that. But you could always do your best to compensate for it. And that's what I did from my ass reaming experience. It doesn't sound like a guitar. All right, thank you. Listen, I'm going to go now. And thank you for joining us. And I want to say that I've really enjoyed doing these alien guitar secrets. But I'm going to stop for a while because I have a project I want to do for you. And it will require me to go off the grid completely. I'll do Thursdays under it all, and that might be the last one of those for a little while. A little while could mean a couple of weeks. I don't know. But I have to finish this other project. But I think I've kind of, we have this is number 7. So we'll have 7 2-hour alien guitar secrets and 7 2-hour under it alls that are all up on YouTube that you can check out at any time. And also, I want to mention right now, again, that Facebook has this new option where you can make donations to live streams. So, for instance, Steve, can you tell me about it again so I can tell them? Because I forget. There's like a button you can push someplace.
Yeah, you can just, it's right up the comments, you can send stars.
You can send stars. You got to purchase the stars first?
Yep.
Yeah, so you purchase a star. What is it? It's like a penny each or something like that, right?
Yeah, but you can buy as many as you want.
And you can buy as many as you want. And if you, and this is a great way to support artists that are doing live streams that need the income. For me, if you make a donation, it's going to go to my Make a Noise Foundation. So it's a charitable donation. You don't have to be obligated, but I noticed that some of you have done this before, and thank you. So I will be back before my birthday because I have something for you. So there's plenty of stuff out there on YouTube of this stuff. It's sort of like I'm like this seagull that just kind of flew in and made a big dump on everybody and then flew off. Except that I guess there's a difference between a seagull and a golden goose. Pretentious bye. All right, so anything else? Well, I think that's it, except thank you again. And I really appreciate your support. And I'm wishing you the best, and I hope you enjoyed this episode. I know I did. And I see you. And I appreciate you. See you next time. Thanks.